Hello everyone, it's Justin Dawson. I hope you had a great Christmas and looking forward to the end of 2025 and the start of 2026. We're just past Christmas and here's another episode of the All Things TechIE Podcast where we are speaking with Jack Walters, co-founder and CEO of Hapware. It's episode 133 of the All Things TechIE Podcast.
Here's the show that loves to talk about gadgets and gizmos, from A-Logic to Yamaha, cameras to control panels. You get what I mean. We love talking all things techie. In fact, that's the name of the show. And here is your host, Justin Dawson.
Merry Christmas to all of you. If you were not looking at my personal message that I gave you on all my social medias, Sir Justin Dawson, it's the All Things TechIE Podcast, episode 133, and we are still in the world of CES, the Consumer Electronics Show that's coming up in literally a week and a half. I'll be flying out on the 3rd of January 2026. I will be flying out to Las Vegas for my first Consumer Electronics Show, CES 2026. I am so looking forward to it. I still have to think about packing. I still have to think about what I'm bringing, but my inbox is completely and utterly filling up to the brim with requests to go see different booths. And while I'm trying to think about seeing different booths, listeners and viewers, I am also doing some pre-CES shows. And before Christmas, I spoke with Jack Walters, who is the co-founder and CEO of Hapware. His team are unveiling AllEye, the first wearable that can tell you everything about the people you interact with and communicate that information using haptic technology. AllEye is a wristband that interprets expression, gestures, and other non-verbal signals. It translates these non-verbal cues into a customized language of vibration patterns that you can feel around a wrist strap. It integrates with the Meta Ray bands. In other words, they can provide people with real-time access to non-verbal cues using haptic technology. Well, before Christmas, I spoke with Jack Walters and learned a bit more about Hapware technology and AllEye. Have a listen. So, Jack, thank you so much for joining me on the All Things Techie Podcast. Tell me a bit about yourself first.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to be on. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Hapware, and we build wearable technology for people with disabilities. So for people who are blind, neurodiverse, on the autism spectrum, certain information may be missed out, whether it's the nodding of the head, the facial expressions, the body language, the gestures, the visual cues that make up how we interact with people, how we communicate, the emotions, the sentiments, so on and so forth, is largely inaccessible to people who are blind or autistic because it's visual or difficult to understand. And we communicate all that information using AI and haptic technology with a pair of smart glasses and a haptic wristband that can communicate these different cues depending on what is seen or what's in front of them. And myself, my background is in engineering, primarily mechanical engineering, and then kind of got more involved in the tech and AI side of things, and also engineering management. So just kind of like running teams, working with teams, critical path, trying to think how do you move fast and break things. And I'm a lifelong disability tech, sort of wearable tech.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how did you get into this area of disability tech? It's interesting, like studying it, but then like mechanical engineering like that. And then, is there anyone in the family, or how did you get so interested in this area?
Yeah, so actually, the way I got interested into it was through a research project. This was like I was in school, in university, and I was on this federal research project of saying like, hey, make something using haptic technology. That was like the whole prompt of the research project. So really broad, open-ended. And the person that was mentoring that project happens to be my co-founder now,
Mhm.
and he's 100% blind. So he's 100% blind, and we met, and he was kind of mentoring this grant, this research project on that I was doing research on. And from that, we just had a lot of conversations, heard a lot of stories, worked together very closely. And I felt obliged to say, okay, we should do something for good with this grant. Like we have some money to mess around with. Let's try to find out real problems for people with disabilities. And just being motivated by Brian, who's blind, and kind of seeing what life is like for him. And that just opened the can of worms of just talking to a bunch of organizations and people with disabilities of a wide range. Like, we'd go around reaching out to people in Facebook groups or email, or just going to local events, people that are deafblind, people that have intellectual disabilities, paraplegics, so on and so forth. And we just like ended up talking to a bunch of different folks in the disability community and maybe their caregivers, and just kept finding like this common theme of communication, social interactions, access to the workforce,
Mhm.
you know, um, and self-reportedness of, why people think they can work or why people think they can't, or mainly why people think they can't work, or why they aren't getting access to jobs. And a lot of it came down to, confidence, ability, and just really just the skill, like up being having the skills that they thought to kind of go out and just do something that is like this, like having like a sales call or whatever it is, or like having
Yeah,
a conversation.
absolutely.
And that's really what started it all, was like those kind of like early conversations, meeting Brian, insights, doing research on kind of this realm. And you kind of just have this like mushroom effect of like, oh wow, there's a lot more going on here that no one's really paying attention to.
So you mentioned there, and without you don't need to say the full amount if it's non-disclosed, but you got some grants to go off and do this research, do this tech. How long have you been researching? I'm sure there's been a lot of prototypes before you've come up with the final version.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, um, I'd say I went full time on Hapware at the beginning of the year.
Right.
So really just kind of pretty green company in that realm, where it was before that it was just like in grad school, doing it on the side, but we didn't really know exactly what we were solving. Like the thing that we were solving a year ago is now what we're solving today, right? Like
Mhm.
things have changed. Problems evolved on us. We've learned from testing with a lot of different people. So, we've gone through about five prototypes, and what we'll be unveiling at CES is kind of like our newest, greatest, latest and greatest wearable. It integrates with the Meta Ray-Bans.
Nice.
So, like it exists in other people's smart glasses ecosystems or camera
You sort of
ecosystems.
answered the question that I was going to ask you afterwards. Like what if people wear glasses already or what? But the fact that you're getting into Meta as well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and like I think one of the important things for wearables in general is making them software enabled and not hardware dependent.
Hmm.
So, like, what does that mean? Like, it means that like people have different preferences of their wearables. Like right now, like especially on the things that you wear on your wrist, there's a dozen different things they put on your face. I think that's just going to expand and blow up, as time proceeds. So trying to build a platform that you can plug into each of those different smart glasses so that it works for the user. So whether they have the Meta Ray bands or they have a different wearable, they can go into essentially any of them.
So on that basis of you say you can go into any of them, I seen the prototype on your website. It seems like there's a small box on the side of the actual glasses. That's pretty much doing all the that. I'm guessing that's an AI camera or so, that you programmed.
Yes, yeah. So that was those are one of the, like the prototype versions of before we started just integrating with smart glasses like the Meta Ray-Ban. So, we would make some clip-on solutions so people could try it on their own glasses if they were prescription. all that sort of good stuff. So we made some glasses solutions, but
Mhm.
now we've more so pivoted to just integrating with existing smart glasses, so that we don't have to get into the realm of building smart glasses. Like that's already a people have already done that. It's already a solved problem, and it's a growing market. So we're just saying, okay, we're going to be the software enabled interface to understand the people around you, and get the kind of the AI post processing sort of features that may be important for conversations, for interactions, for so on and so forth. But really giving people access to what people mean. We say like understand everyone you talk to, right?
So, but your unique and what is really yours is the wristband because that is the vibrations really that's giving away the
Yeah.
emotions. I've also going back to your website, like I see that like it's sort of it track one of your examples is nearly like it's tracking it like vibrations of a happy face that's going down. So the way I would
Yeah.
always describe it is you could take a palm of a neurodiverse or a visually impaired person and you could draw a happy face on their hand and hopefully they would recognize the senses, or even with visually impaired people maybe doing letters, you would draw the letter on their hand. This is going to sort of give the same type of vibrations, am I right?
Yeah, so you bring up an interesting point. So what we're building on is a haptic language.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
just how like in the English language, you have letters, and when you have letters, the letters T, H, and E, when you mix them right, it says the,
Mhm.
And then when you have more letters that make words, you can get a sentence. And then eventually, after you have a sentence, you can stack on them to make paragraphs, a story, a novel, and you can say all sorts of things. So what we're doing with haptics is in a very similar way. It's not that it's a binary language and letters and organizing those letters into certain ways, but it's creating a story on the wrist or creating sensations on the wrist that emulate that cue. So one buzz on the left side doesn't mean anything. But when you put that one buzz on the left side and you do a bunch of other things that go around the wrist, then you can recreate these feelings and these sensations that are easy to understand, like the
Oh, so
smiling.
that's very interesting what you're saying there. So it goes around the whole area of the wrist. It's not just like one single pulse on
Yep.
the back.
Yep.
Okay,
And
right.
and so what that does is it allows you so you have customization and control both spatially, temporally, the localization, the intensity, timing, you have all these different variables so you can create these different patterns. And then once you have all those things combined, it's a how do you make them intuitive so that when someone feels it, they know what it means,
Mhm.
with minimal training. Because like, one of the things that you think of, it's like, okay, well, if I got to memorize 10 different patterns or 10 different buzzes, that might be hard because there's hundreds of social cues that we might experience.
Mhm.
Um, so way that we kind of think about this is how do we make something, and this is all very well researched because my co-founder's got his Brian has his PhD in computer science. We have another PhD on the team in kind of like the deep take facial recognition world.
Right.
How do you create haptic sensations that are intuitive and feel like the cue with no training needed? So, I mean, like if you put it on, would you know what it meant, what that vibration meant with no training? And that's what we're trying to make it. So when you
But
just put it
not only
on,
that, it's
Mhm.
it. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but like this, it's
No,
so fascinating because if you do something like this, it doesn't have to just be the English language. You can have this internationally programmed for anyone.
right, right. So you bring a good point because um, different countries have different social norms and nonverbal cues.
Mhm.
Um, like the cues that we have in Colorado, where I'm from in the States, versus someone in Tokyo or in India or Greece will widely be different. And we know that. Like some people in some cultures, they nod their head for no and they shake their head for yes. In
It's
America, in the States, it's like, oh, that's a little confusing. But that's a cultural difference. So we had built in adaptability in our computer vision algorithms. So this is like, the other software enabled part. Like we have the haptic interface, human machine interaction that is novel and special and really, um, you know, agnostic to people and intuitive. But then we have the computer vision algorithms that you need to make adaptable to the different cultures so that when you can recognize different ethnicity groups, recognize the different cues and be able to say, okay, I know that this head shake, because we're here X, Y, and Z, and these ethnic positions um, actually means this. And that is kind of another layer of AllEye, our product, our first product, I should say, that we're building.
So, on that point with the haptics, how many different emotions currently is programmed into the glass?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, right now we have like a little over 25,
Hmm.
and these are mixtures of body language, gestures, expressions, emotions. So, things as simple as just a wave or a handshake, or when someone's walking away. We have, for people who are blind, we got a lot of recommendations for middle finger.
Oh,
Um,
right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if people are flipping off blind people like that, but the users asked for it, so we delivered. And then all of the different kind of intricacies that you could think of on facial expressions, how eyebrows are moving, the eye gaze, the mouth, the nose, the cheeks. And then, when it comes to the emotion side of this, and this is where we got to be careful because you don't want to communicate something inaccurate. You don't want to have false positives, especially when you're working with the community, like the neurodiverse community, where, if you tell someone that they're angry, but they're just happy or surprised, that could be very harmful to their
Yeah.
experience. That could be very harmful to their you know, that interaction. So we try to be very, very careful when we do communicate emotions, that we have a very high degree of accuracy and know-how, and we can expect this, to be right at a very high likelihood. Accuracy numbers and facial recognition are kind of mumbo jumbo in my opinion.
Mm.
Like everyone's like, oh, we're 95% accurate. It's like, well, you're training off the same data sets that everyone else is. They're all open
I
source.
say it was just so much like emotionally emotionally fun, and also emotionally roller coaster for your co-founder to when you got these vibrations working, and then know that if you did it the second, the third, the fourth time over, from taking a break or changing your emotion where it might have given a different vibration to actually getting it to the accuracy of going, I know you're smiling right now, or I know you're raising your eyebrows. I say it was just
So,
yeah, I say it was a roller coaster of emotions for your co-founder.
oh, absolutely. And so it takes 2 minutes for a user to learn 7 cues.
Right. Okay.
So
Wow.
you can get access. So like Brian being blind and these visual cues being inaccessible simply because they're visual, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he knows what a handshake is, he knows what a smiling face is, he knows what arms crossed is, but when they happen, you can't see them because they're visual.
Mm-hmm.
Those things that happen, you can learn in 2 minutes.
Wow.
And seven, you can learn 7 of them in 2 minutes. So now you can think of like you can ask the question of like, wow, so you have an autistic child, or you're a neurodiverse professional, and you say, okay, well, I struggle with knowing when someone's engaged and when someone is surprised, when to ask a question, um, these different cues. You could say, okay, I got a list of 7. These 7 are really hard for me. You can learn those in 2 minutes and then have them when they end up happening in your interaction. And that's just the start, right? That's 7 in 2 minutes.
Right.
So the familiarization is kind of exponential, right? Because you can get these things really like in very quickly in the time access, 2 minutes, and then eventually, it just kind of tapers off and you're very, very accurate, above 95% recognition yourself just after 5 minutes a week. and it just becomes second nature. So you just start like recognizing these patterns, and you don't need to go back and train yourself on them. You just
Wow.
have them.
Yeah, like it's items like this that we take for granted. Because even just talking to you, and I'm looking into my teleprompter at the moment, I'm just thinking, like, how many times have we changed our facial expression just by talking to each other in the space of a minute or so? So on that, like, I was reading your press releases and your website. You say that now you might say, Justin, it's actually even we've come on from our press release, but you're saying it takes about 90 seconds for your glasses to read the
No,
expression.
no.
No,
Oh yeah.
okay, good.
So,
Right,
so
okay.
that, well, yeah,
Correct
let me
me.
clarify. So 90 seconds to learn a user to learn the haptics
Okay.
of those different cues. So when it comes from recognition to delivery, so recognition meaning when you smile
Mhm.
and the amount of time how long it takes for you to smile to me to feel it on my wrist is less than a quarter of a second.
A quarter of a second. That is awesome. So
Yep.
therefore, you could have all these changes of expressions and it is pulsating through to the wrist.
Yep.
That,
Exactly.
that's incredible.
So near real time, and that's like the main thing here is that's really important to us is how real time can we get it because you need the information in real time when you're having a job interview
Of
or you're on a
course.
date or you're on a podcast, right?
Mm.
Like you don't want to know 90 seconds later or a minute later or even 5 seconds later. Like
It's a long time.
it's a long time in the matter of social interactions like Brian, and just like a lot of our blind users, like if someone's reaching out to shake your hand, it takes 5 seconds to respond.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's a long 5 seconds of like
it's
holding
on
your hand
five
out.
seconds.
Yeah, so with that, talk to me about the wireless connectivity. Is it Bluetooth or is it just pure wireless? How does it connect to the?
Yes, yeah, it's a good question. Really good question. So it's all Bluetooth,
Mhm.
BLE. Our kind of overall architecture is so you smart glasses is visual input. It's like the detect. That's like, okay, what are we picking up around us? Right now, it's the Meta Ray-Bans. We
Mhm.
have some of our own prototype ones, but the Meta Ray-Bans, they're really good. They got good, they
Yeah,
got they got good camera features and wire
yeah.
and Bluetooth. So then those frames are then sent to a mobile app or the Hapware mobile app, and that's kind of where all the processing takes place. That's where we, run through our computer vision algos. Um, we decipher what's going on, and then it just sends Bluetooth signals to the wristband, which then initiate the
Okay, so
haptic.
you need your mobile phone, your cell phone to be in the middle of this whole process. Yeah.
Yes, and the reason for that. So we don't have many of our super old prototypes on there, but we do have some of them on our website, I think. I might even have one laying around. I usually have a bunch of electronics laying around on my desk, but uh,
Meet your brother, like you don't want to see what's underneath this desk at the moment. Yeah.
yeah, like the one's right behind me is just boxes full of electronics. But so we previously had like a really big processor on the watch band on the wristband, and we were doing processing there locally, but it was just so big and cumbersome because like when you're sending certain things to the cloud, it's like, okay, what can you sacrifice in latency?
Mhm.
And we want to be as near real time as possible. So transitioning to the phone just allows for a lot higher processing power because the phone chips are incredible, and you can do a little bit of pre and post processing on the smaller chips that are in the glasses and then on the wristband. So just like trying to cut off as much latency in each step as you can, and if you're just sending blue like BLE signals and bit strings, like the milliseconds count is actually it's very quick. It's I think like the lowest BLE signal you can send is 7.5 milliseconds.
Wow.
We don't have, we're not that fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Processing
But
what to do and sending images over over Bluetooth is a
but then the nice thing
deal.
about using the Ray Bans as well is like it is also giving you access to several other areas if people wanted to use it for additional hearing. If they wanted to use the Ray-Bans with the Meta features, it's already there. If it's connecting to their cell phone or their mobile, it gives unlimited amount of choices than just like, like the AI glasses are coming on more and more, and
Yeah.
if it can recognize that the person standing in front of them, like the room of expansion for what you're creating is massive, because you could have something talking in your ear saying that, like, this is Jack standing in front of me, along with the wrist wearables. Now, you mentioned that your co-founder there is 100% blind, and so you had someone to test on all the time. But when you have been going through all the prototypes, what has been your research and your test environment? Like, what age groups have you been doing it with? How many people have you been doing with?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because you know, Brian's like a great test case because he's part of the community, but he's also like a superhero because he's got his like PhD in computer science. And
Right, yes.
there's like 20, we just learned this stat, like there's 20 people in the world who are blind with PhDs in computer science, and he's one of them. So
That's
it's just
awesome. That's
it's
a
pretty
cool
cool.
start. Yeah, that is a cool start, Tom.
Yeah, we'll have to do like a post CES converse like and have him join because he has a lot of good stories about the journey of being a blind PhD in comp sci and doing research. But so we want to diversify, right? Like you want to get a lot of different perspectives, and that's like the job of, I guess, like the problem discovery and early adopters and trying to find your beachhead market, right? So we've done over, and when it comes to actually people that have used it, hundreds of people have put it on and tried it. Beta tests, like long term, multi-week, month sort of deals, over 50. And this has been a pretty good sample size for us, kind of like running in these like 30, 40, 50 kind of groups. And we do get a pretty diverse group.
Mhm.
So our first rule of thumb is 80% blind, low vision, deaf blind, 20% neurodiverse autistic. The reason for that being is um, we've seen the most sort of impact in the blind and low vision community, but we've also seen a similar impact in the neurodiverse autism community. And, we just view that there might be a few different things that we would want to tweak and change for each of them, mainly in the software,
Yeah,
to adhere to like what their needs are. But it's still important for us to understand that because we want to be able to support both communities, and we know that we're solving similar problems, but there are different channels. So we get pretty granular on the type of disability that the person has, when that disability was discovered, or if they were blind from birth, or if they went blind when they were 18 years old or 25, or they're
of
just losing their
course.
vision now.
Yeah.
So we get pretty granular on that. And then the next thing that's important is what kind of are their goals, like what kind of transformation, what happens before and after they use AllEye. And that's the most important thing. So it's like, having pre and post surveys and data collection along the way, so that we can say, okay, before they're using AllEye, the here are the data points. But then after they used AllEye, they said things like, this restored communication. It made me a better teacher. It, helped me, understand my family members. I went to a restaurant and I knew when the waiter was doing X, Y, and Z. And those are the
Which is
stories,
incredible. Yeah, like
which is
like
incredible.
it's like life. That's life changing stories. Like I was in a previous episode, like pre CES as well. I've been talking to the ARP Association that do a lot on health tech as well, and I said the exact same thing. It's you are. You do not just come up with a company to make profit. You've come up with a company that's life-changing solutions for disabled people. And going on your thought of like, that's a great data collection of between blind people and neurodiverse people, because from having an autistic kid, and like actually finding out as well, like did a screener recently and found out that I'm neurodiverse, but like again, such a wide
Yeah.
rainbow that you will have people with processing disorders, that when you want to have that nearly zero latency with a blind person, but with a neurodiverse person, it might be the fact that you need to repeat that signal maybe once or twice to go, yes, just to remind you that this person is smiling at you, and it's a good emotion or a bad emotion, or, angry emotion, sad emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's even, like to put onto that, like you said in the neurodivergent, um, it might even be like it's what we've seen as important is kind of like the learning that goes along with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a lot of therapists and people that, when mainly I'd say under 21 or under 25, folks that are getting treatment, that are neurodivergent, they'll work on different skills, different things, different ways they want to develop. And, one that's very common is just the social cues, social interactions.
Mm-hmm.
You're interacting with peers. There's a lot of training that goes along with that. A lot of how do you express how you feel, but how do you understand how other people feel? And, there's a good opportunity for having the student or having, the kiddo wearing the device, and then being able to look after the conversation, after their peer interaction, and be like, oh, this is the learnings from this. This is what this person was trying to show me. This is what they were trying to tell me. And now I know this. So, like, I just had an interaction with Paul, and the interaction was mostly positive. We talked about this, this, and this, and this is how he was feeling. And I know that because of these kind of contextual things that are being told to me. So
Yes.
then you kind of have this like environment where the person with autism, or their caregiver or their parent, can say, oh yeah, like let's like remember that conversation you had with Paul, how do you think that went? And then you could say, well, he's like, oh, I don't know, or maybe they do know. And then you can kind of gauge based off the learnings that the device will tell you also and record, that this is kind of the rundown of what happened. So there's just a lot of
And
opportunity.
there is a lot of opportunity, but to go into an interesting area there with therapists is like you can then judge the neurodiverse child or adult whether they are emotionally regulated, and from the wristwatch too, because like if you got enough data from it, you can say, oh right, that this child was happy with Jack, and something has changed, or and you can read it too, of going, okay, well, he might be verbalizing that he's okay, but really he's not. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's such an interesting area. Is that emotional regulation of the person wearing the thing? Like how do you regulate and control, or at least just monitor how someone is feeling internally when you don't have these things looking at them? No, that's a really interesting one. Like this, I think that like there's going to be like a lot of kind of focus on that because computer vision has opened up, the visual side of it,
Mhm.
but then you also have like the biometrics side that can be
Yes.
utilized in these new sensors of like, okay, what like stress, cortisol, like all the kind of things that these fitness wearables are doing, but under emotional regulation, and then adding that to people with disabilities,
Well,
where yeah.
you mentioned Meta, and of course, doing a lot with smart glasses. Um, from being involved in a company like this, I'm guessing like going to different trade shows and stuff, you're learning that like, okay, I can network with these people that are also designing software or hardware for a not one size fits all, but the fact that it can be used in the home, it can be used in several different environments, if to help a disabled person.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is CES is going to be the biggest one we've been to yet. It's going to
Is
be
this your
like
first CES? That's what.
first CES.
Yes, it's and similar. I can't wait. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and like I work in a school of nursing, as a tech officer, and
Mm.
like sometimes it's just about simulation, and just from doing a couple of these healthcare podcasts on tech, I've just realized there's so many different things out there. Like, and I've just noticed that from my own experience, of reading up on CES in the past, the stories that really get out there are usually the ones that you go, that sounds like such a gimmick, but like this healthcare vertical is changing lives. Like I'll go back to that once again. It's absolutely changing lives. So where else have you been with this wearables? Like what other trade shows have you gone to show that and get it?
Yeah, so we've been to a handful of actually disability specific nonprofit
Mhm.
um, trade shows. So like the different blind and low vision organizations across the country, going there, getting feedback, hosting kind of panels and discussions on wearables. Um, and then also going to like we've won some of the award like a handful of accessibility awards.
Mhm.
And we'll be on the center stage I think twice, or at least once, or the accessibility stage at CES, sharing a little bit about what we do. So I'll send you the invite so you can stop
Please
on
do,
by.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great. And there'll be a couple other accessibility companies, and then the disability tech, like in general, is an area that's like gaining a lot of momentum, especially because of AI software being able to enable like a lot quicker and cheaper, and then hardware development just becoming more streamlined. So back in the day, now back in the day, I mean like 5 years ago, so not even back in the day.
Yeah.
No, maybe even like less than that, probably 3 years ago. We can even get more aggressive, maybe in just a year, right? These disability tech solutions, assistive technology solutions for people with disabilities was have been like ungodly expensive.
Mhm.
Um, $10,000, $15,000 for something that you use for a year or 2 years, or maybe you outgrow it or it doesn't become, relevant
And
anymore.
this is it. Yeah, yeah.
And right now it's like an inflection point because AI has enabled people with disabilities to do things that they couldn't do before, and get access to things that they didn't have access to before. So it's opening lots of doors. And the other thing that it's doing is more people can solve these problems. So it's not just like, the one company that's a legacy that has been making wheelchairs for people for paraplegics that can charge whatever they want and sell it to
Exactly.
veterans there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh no, like the students, or the young folks, or the just the passionate, engineers or problem solvers can, try and take a stab at this. And that's where like we see a lot of like these inflection points is like disability tech is not like an afterthought anymore. Accessibility is not an afterthought anymore. It's a forefront. It's a strategy. It opens up a lot of actually revenue opportunities for the greater, government, like just societies, like if we tap into all the disability markets in the UK and America and all over Europe, you're gonna have a lot more economic flow because people are able to kind of jump into jobs that they didn't have to or get access to things they didn't have to. And that is a really exciting thing because more people can afford technology, more people can do things, use like kind of really at the end of the day contribute like and that's kind of been like a part of a lot of these nonprofits that we go to and we talk to and we interact with and we beta test with,
Mhm.
um, that they say is like, a lot of the times the people, folks in the disability community, they just want to contribute, they don't want to just be unemployed. They want to contribute. Like, even if it's just, whatever, like it could be literally any job, but like, people want to contribute. And now with added technology and greater access to therapies, more like upskilled workforce, more affordable things, those opportunities have like never been better, in my opinion.
So what's next? I know that's a very loaded question, but what's next? Like, would you like to see Hapware being used more for youth or adults, a bit of both in schools and colleges, and how do you plan to market and get it out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we there's three pillars,
Mm,
and I can kind of get into some features and kind of get into some benefits here to explain why these are the pillars. So it's educational,
mhm,
professionally, and socially. So like when you think about those different pillars, they're all really, really different, but they have a lot of crossover, and they're all very important for where like for one person and where they're at in life, whether you're a student and you need educational help, or you're in grad school, or you're trying to get employment, or you just want to use it leisurely and socially. So what we try to do to support those things is by giving people customization and control on their mobile device, on their phone.
Which
So
is
that they,
massive. That is massive. Yeah. Like
yeah,
you just people like and that's where people forget that like okay, it is a wearable, but once you have the app, the world's your oyster on it.
it is. Like the software, like it's all going to come back and it's all going to be like a full circle moment. So if you're going to a job interview, you can select and deselect the different cues that you want communicated for that job
Okay.
interview.
Right.
Or you can make little presets and say, okay, I got my presets, preloaded nonverbal cues added to this setting. So like my job interview setting, I have all these cues already, or I got my home setting and these cues are already added. Like maybe it's hugs and smiles and waves when when you go back home. And then you can have, other presets. So you can have presets and you can have certain cues that may be important for each of those different pillars, educational, professional, and social, so that you always do have what's important.
Wow. Like yeah, I'm just in my head. Like I know you're talking about cues. You're talking about, but like in my head, I'm still thinking on the neurodiverse circle there
Yep.
because there is like, especially I know with my son's age group and as neurodiverse grow older, but there is autistic people that don't want the sense of touch, right?
Yeah.
So like they might be very standoff, someone coming up to them or shaking their hand or giving them a hug. But if they're wearing glasses and they're wearing and they are acceptable to wearing your wrist strap, it's the point that from a distance you can be sending them that emotional signals that they would be able to receive, and as you say, setting the presets of what they like and don't like. It's incredible.
Right. And like that's the other thing, like the disability community is not one size fits all,
No,
or
it's
people in
not.
general.
Yeah.
And so it's like how then do you think about that customization and adaptability for different people?
Mhm.
So like especially in the on the autism spectrum where it's like some folks with autism, the sense of touch or haptics may be super soothing and great, but for others, it is sensory overload. It's distracting, and it could be like a trigger even. Like it could be like it could be a negative. So you have like that sort of dynamic. It's like, well, some people love the haptics, or some people may like them, some people won't. But but they both have maybe a common ground of needing access to these certain cues, or understanding their friends, or connecting with their peers. So how do you get that same sort of value communicated to them
Mhm.
without, the package of the wearable or the package of the haptics? And then there's a lot of different things you can do there, right? Like if they're comfortable wearing glasses, or maybe it's just the software, the post recaps, you can just count on audio and just give audio cues if that is, appropriate at the time, or it can be textual, something that's sent to them and they can read. So there is a lot of like ways to kind of get creative and customize because the needs of the disability community will widely vary.
Now, yeah, sorry, take a break there. While I was just while you were talking there, thinking of another question, which is, okay, you have the wearables, you have the haptics, yeah, and you have the wrist watch, but what if? And you're going to go, very good question. Just what if it's a group scenario? If there's more than one person standing in front of the blind
Yep.
person, can your software detect that as a group session, that Jack and Justin is standing in front of your co-founder? Justin sticks out his hand first for a handshake before Jack. Will
Yep.
he be able to know?
So this is an expensive problem. This is a hard
Yes,
problem.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Um, but it's one that, we I think have done a good job at identifying early and have been trying a lot of different things. So the best way to kind of describe what we're doing right now is there's controls that we can implement on the hardware, and then there's things that we can do algorithmically and software to get the best decisions to say this person is the most likely person that you're talking to,
Okay,
and then
great. Yeah.
communicating it.
Yeah.
So, and then communicating who we think you're most likely talking to. So the combination here on the hardware is mainly based off where the person's looking, like where their gaze is. So if there's three people in front of you, if you're looking a little bit more to the right, left or middle, um, doing some math is saying you're probably talking to this person. Um, implementing some things like zoom on the glasses so that it zooms into the person more so in frame, more person that is maybe doing the gesturing and communicating and then trying to ignore all the noise, like the background. So it's like if we're having a big, like a CES, for example, there's going to
Yes.
be hundreds of thousands of people walking around. And if we're talking face to face, when we see each other, and I'm wearing it and I got like three people around me or walking, like how do I make sure I eliminate those people?
Mhm.
So there's a lot that goes into it. But there's this those are the kind of the two approaches is a combination of hardware specs and ability, and then working your algos in the background so that you do kind of get at least a high degree of confidence.
It's it's a fascinating area. I am really looking forward to trying these on because I say even for someone that's not visually impaired, neurotypical, just even being able to close your eyes and see, like, okay, feel the different vibrations on the actual wrist strap, I say is incredible to, and as you say, to learn it in 90 seconds as well.
Yeah. So when you come by, we'll have like a demo setup. We have like a setup that people can just walk up and just set their wrist in and just feel the different patterns. So that we can just like cycle because it's like, oh, we're gonna have a lot of people. We can't like give everyone 2 minutes,
Yes,
probably,
of
but we can
course.
give everyone like a little bit. So we have these demo setups that people are gonna be able to go up there, press the button, and be like, oh yeah, this is the haptic. Like that, I can feel that. I can understand that. And then we'll have a bunch of wristbands around and glasses and so on and so forth. And um it's gonna be really neat. And one of the other things that we've kind of gotten response to, or just people have asked us about, is and you kind of mentioned it, like, oh, I'm sighted and neurotypical, but what if I, want to use it or wear it, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sighted and neurotypical, but it would be pretty interesting to know what someone's engagement or interest, or if they're deceiving me, if
Mhm.
they're in pain things that may just be visual and hard to understand because they're hard to understand. Um, and this has been like a really recent kind of like feedback, or not even feedback, but questions we've been receiving from people in the area and the communities like, well, what about, people that aren't disabled? Like, can we still use it? And it's like, well, yeah. But it's probably the same sort of route that we're going to go down to in the future, where it's like we have the blind and we're doing 80 and 20, like 80% testing with the blind, 20% autistic. And then, eventually we'll probably flip-flop those numbers and do 80% autistic and then 20% neurotypical so we can understand how to, best support other folks as well.
Mhm. With that research, have you found that it differs between child and adult, or have you seen that like the
Yep. So the younger, the better they are at understanding the haptics.
really?
Uh,
Okay,
yep.
excellent.
Uh, I think it's just be something to do with maybe just technological aptitude. Elastic, like they learn things quick, we learn things quicker when we're younger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think it has to do something with that. Like, there's a lot of like studies and statistics around learning language when you're younger versus learning new languages when you're, you know, 25, 30, 40, 40, like just any time older than when you're like a teenager or a child. So this younger, the better. And like we did a lot of testing with like the transition age group kind of being like 13 to 25.
Right.
I mean, like the high school kind of age range, mid-teens, tweens even. And they responded very, very good. The best, actually. I think it's a combination of a level of maturity and development, but also being young and being able to learn things quickly. So the transition age group is like a very critical group, especially when it comes to the development in general, because that transition age group is when you're really developing into like who you are socially and when you're really connecting with peers, when you're 13, 14, 15.
Yes.
You might not know better when you're 7 or 8, but when you're in your teenage years, you're so attuned to your social around surroundings, or you're thinking about it so
Yeah.
much.
A lot
So
of things have changed. It's a great product. I'm really looking forward to to remind everyone where they can find you, because I've been to trade shows. I've been to Infocom, which is usually at the Las Vegas Convention Center every second year, but people forget that CES is like the whole of pretty much the Las Vegas Strip, and trying to get around everywhere. But where will it? What hotel and where will we find you guys?
yes, so we'll be in Eureka Park, Hall G, booth 61444.
Six one.
So we'll be in Eureka Park, which
Okay.
is like the startups area. I think it's the Venetian.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we'll be. Yeah. So come by Eureka Park, Hall G,
Will you
booth.
get a chance to look around yourself, especially when it's your first CES?
Oh yeah, I plan on doing a lot. There's a lot of companies that I want to visit with, some other, like founders and founder friends that I know, entrepreneurs that I know that are going to be there. So we plan on connecting. Um, there's like some investors too that, we've been talking to that want to hang out. So I'm definitely going to do a lot of kind of meandering. We got a good team. So there's going to be like five of us there or six of us there. So
But like me,
we'll
you're going to
kind of,
be a kid in a candy shop going, "Oh my God, this is insane! This is a circus of tech." Because I like you. The biggest trade show I've been to is Integrated Systems Europe in Barcelona, and that's like 14 halls across the Fira. Like, but it's one venue compared to, oh God, there's how many venues at CES, and how do you get around, and how do you get to see everything? It's impossible to see absolutely everything, but I do hope to, in one way or another, to get across to the Venetian and see you guys. For more website wise, where can I find that things, Jack?
yeah. So it's hapware.com, HAPWARE.com. You can find us there. If you want to use AllEye and you want to experience, you can join our waitlist. It's just hapware.com/waitlist. You also like automatic like we'll like give you updates and everything when we do launch. You get a discount.
And
Um,
sorry, that's a good question. When is hopefully the launch of and going to retail?
yeah, probably the middle of 2026.
Okay.
So sometime in the next eight-ish months probably.
Mhm.
um and we'll be doing like our next big unveiling in March, and then hopefully right after that it's just like an iteration and tooling away.
Oh, that's super.
We'll see, but yeah, the 2026. But yeah, definitely check out our website. Just follow us on social media. We're pretty active. We have a newsletter that we try to keep everyone up to date to. I always respond to people's emails. So you can like if anyone wants to just email me, it's Jack at Hapware. I pretty much respond to everyone's or answer questions. So yeah, thank you. No, this has been great.
No, there you have it. Jack Walters, co-founder and CEO of Hapware. They will be at CES 2026 in Eureka Park in the Venetian Expo, Hall G, booth 61444. There's so many booths and so many places to see at CES 2026. I'm really looking forward to it. You will follow all the information that I can give you, and I'll be doing live feeds and much, much more on at CES from the 3rd of January, where I will arrive, and then from the 4th of January at the Paris Hotel, overlooking the fountains, and then touring around Las Vegas and the Strip and giving you all the information. And you can find out more by visiting www.allthingstech.ie. Follow me on socials at Sir Justin Dawson. For more, talk to you soon when I'm in Vegas. See you soon. Bye bye.